Sophie, 30 years old, a freelance graphic designer living in an 8th-floor apartment in Chicago. Summers here are brutal, with the heat and humidity forcing me to keep the AC running day and night. On my laptop screen was the draft for a new ad project. The client gave it a tentative green light, but I wasn't satisfied. I like things to be perfect, down to the tiniest detail. Babe, there's a message from my mom. Luke's voice came from the living room, where he was lounging with his feet up, watching sports as usual. I frowned slightly. A message from Martha, my mother-in-law, was never something that put me at ease. I paused my typing but didn't turn around. What did she say? Luke read it out loud, sounding a bit relieved. She asked if we're free Sunday evening. She wants to have us over for dinner, to celebrate your birthday a week early. I took a deep breath. It had been 3 years since the wedding, but my relationship with Martha had never been smooth. She always acted polite, but there was a coldness behind her eyes and in every word she spoke. If you want to go, I'll go, I said, keeping my tone neutral. When I turned to look at Luke, his face lit up like a kid getting a gift. He always looked that way when I agreed to anything involving his mom. Luke was a financial advisor, smart, logical at work, yet oddly blind when it came to his mother's subtle jabs. She's mellowed out lately. She even said you've become a wonderful wife. I smiled back, but inside I was skeptical. Martha? Complimenting me? The same woman who once gave me a worn-out wool scarf and said that color suits pale girls like you? The same one who once told me, Luke deserves a wife who cares about family, not someone glued to a computer screen all day. Is Amanda coming too? I asked, referring to Luke's younger sister. Definitely. She moved back in with Mom recently, he said casually, as if that had no bearing on me. Amanda, 26 years old, and had changed jobs 5 times in 2 years. I didn't hate her, but the way she looked at me, like I'd stolen her place in the family, always made me uneasy. Should we bring something? It feels rude to show up empty-handed, I asked. Luke shook his head. Mom said she'll handle everything. Oh, and she mentioned she has a special gift for you. I nodded faintly. But I wasn't expecting much. Her past special gifts included almond cookies, when I'm allergic to nuts. Last year it was a size XS sweater, though I wear a medium. And the first year, better left unmentioned. That evening, while I was chopping carrots in the kitchen, Luke came up and wrapped his arms around me from behind. You're thinking about my mom again, aren't you? I nodded honestly. He frowned. Here we go again. Sophie, she's just trying to get along with you. I stayed silent. Arguing wouldn't help. Luke truly believed his mother was perfect. If there was any tension, it had to be my fault. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm just tired. Luke kissed the top of my head, but I could see the flicker of disapproval in his eyes. After 3 years, things between us weren't the same. His heart was slowly being pulled back toward the family I was never fully welcomed into. That weekend, I met up with Lily, my best friend from college, at a small cafe on Clark Street. As soon as I sat down, she asked, "Going back to your mother-in-law's? Didn't she once say your cake tasted like salty crocodile tears? And she still invites you?" I laughed, though I didn't feel amused. "Yeah, I'm doing it for Luke." Lily frowned. "And what's he doing to protect you from them?" I stared into my cappuccino. "Nothing. To him, his mom's an angel." Lily squeezed my hand. "You need to be careful. I don't trust her. And neither should you." I nodded. A strange unease had been growing inside me. I couldn't explain why, but something about this birthday felt off. On Sunday evening, the Chicago wind picked up suddenly. I threw on a light sweater and stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the ivory dress Luke said looked graceful and elegant. I didn't usually wear something so feminine to Martha's, but today was supposed to be my birthday. At least on paper. "You look stunning," Luke said, buttoning his shirt and giving me a quick kiss on the forehead. "Mom's going to be surprised." I just smiled faintly. Martha's house was in a northern suburb, where the maple trees were just starting to turn red. When we arrived, she was already at the door, draped in a cashmere shawl with her usual rehearsed smile. "Happy birthday, Sophie," she said sweetly, yet colder than the autumn wind. "Thank you," I replied, keeping my voice light. Amanda walked out from the kitchen and threw her arms around Luke like she hadn't seen him in a year. Big bro, I made your favorite roasted veggies. Then she turned to me, her gaze like a knife. Sophie, you don't eat fried food, right? Still cutting back on sugar? I smiled, though something tightened in my chest. Dinner was awkward. Martha kept retelling stories from Luke's childhood. Ones I'd heard at least a dozen times. Amanda hovered around him, refilling his wine and fixing his napkin like I didn't exist. I focused on finishing my salmon in silence. When dessert came, Martha slid a sleek black box with a silver ribbon toward me. A little birthday treat, I know you love sweets. I opened it. Inside was a heart-shaped artisan chocolate set, each piece wrapped in shiny foil. The lid read, Linden & Bell Artisan Chocolate. I knew the brand, one of the priciest in the North Side. A box like that could easily cost over $100. Oh, thank you, it's beautiful. I tried to keep my tone even, though I was suspicious. Martha had never spent that kind of money on me, and I didn't believe she'd suddenly changed. Luke looked thrilled. Mom, this is amazing. Sophie's gonna love it. She's addicted to chocolate. Closed the lid and slipped it into my purse. Maybe tomorrow. I'm too full right now. We left after dark. The wind stung as we walked to the car. Luke seemed cheerful, his hand squeezing my thigh. Mom's trying, you see that, right? I gave a non-committal hum, staring out the window. Inside, that uneasy feeling only grew stronger, like someone had whispered, be careful. The next morning, I got up early to finish my design. Luke sat at the kitchen table reading the paper, coffee steaming beside him. The chocolate box sat open. Aren't you gonna try one? He asked, holding up an unwrapped piece. I had one. It's amazing. Sea salt, caramel or something. I'm grabbing another. I was about to say save it for tonight, but the second one had already vanished into his mouth. I forced a smile. Just don't overdo it. You'll break out. By noon he'd eaten more than half the box. I didn't stop him, just felt increasingly puzzled. He never usually binged on sweets. That night, after wrapping up work, I stepped out of my office to find Luke curled on the sofa, clutching his stomach. What's wrong? I rushed over. Lunch didn't sit right, he panted, pale. My stomach, it hurts. His forehead was burning. Just as I grabbed my phone to call for help, he bolted to the bathroom. The sounds of him vomiting were violent, unrelenting. I called 911, heart pounding. As I waited for the ambulance, I saw the empty chocolate box on the table. The birthday gift from Martha. The ambulance arrived in 10 minutes, though it felt like an hour. Luke was slumped over the sink, drenched in sweat, lips pale. I knelt beside him, hands trembling. I'm here. Hang on, Luke. You'll be okay. One EMT checked his pulse, then turned to me. He's severely dehydrated. We need to start fluids immediately. I just nodded. I couldn't speak. They loaded Luke onto a stretcher, wrapped him up, started an IV. One of them asked, did he eat anything unusual today? I stammered. Just the chocolates. A birthday gift from my mother-in-law last night. His eyes narrowed slightly. Do you still have the box? I pointed. On the table. But I think it's empty. He walked over, picked it up with gloved hands and sealed it in a large zip bag. We'll take it for testing, could be important. I followed the ambulance to Mercy West. The whole ride I held Luke's hand so tightly my nails left marks on my palm. His face was ghostly, eyelids twitching. I never imagined a box of chocolates could lead to this. At the ER they wheeled him in. I sat in the hallway, heart racing, body numb. My hands still smelled faintly of chocolate, sweet but now sickening. 30 minutes later a doctor stepped out with a grave look. Are you Luke Bennett's wife? Yes, I'm Sophie. Is he okay? My voice cracked. They've stabilized him for now. He's suffering from severe poisoning with symptoms that don't match typical foodborne illness. We suspect a specific toxin. Thankfully you called emergency services in time. My legs gave out, and I had to grab a chair for support. Poison? A toxin from the chocolate? Ask. It's possible. We've sent the remaining chocolate for testing. In the meantime, we're treating him with temporary antitoxins. I went silent, my lips moving but no sound coming out. My heart felt like it had dropped into a pit. Just then, my phone buzzed. The screen read, Martha Bennett. I didn't answer. A minute later, Amanda Bennett. I silenced the phone and shoved it into my pocket. I didn't want to hear anyone's voice right now, especially not from the two who had gifted that box. A few hours later, I was allowed into the recovery room. Luke lay motionless on the bed, IV in his arm, his breathing shallow. I sat beside him, held his hand, and whispered, "You have to wake up. I can't go through this alone." I was sitting quietly when a nurse stepped in. "Miss Sophie, the police would like to speak with you." I stepped out into the hallway and saw a man in a light gray coat waiting. He held out a badge. "I'm Lieutenant Dawson with the Chicago Police Department. The hospital contacted us due to suspicions of intentional poisoning." I clenched my fists. "You're saying poisoning?" "We can't confirm anything yet, but preliminary lab results show the chocolates contained a small amount of a compound known to affect the nervous and digestive systems at higher doses. We need to determine the source of the gift. Can you tell us who gave it to you?" "It was my mother-in-law, Martha. She handed it to me herself last night. It was a birthday gift." "Do you think anyone would want to harm you or your husband?" I hesitated. Part of me still didn't want to believe something that terrible could be real. But then I recalled all the times I caught a cold that lingered after eating at Martha's. The dizzy spells after tea she made just for me. The pastries she gave me. That Amanda never touched. I looked Dawson straight in the eye. "I'm not sure, but I think something's been going on for a long time and I just didn't see it." He nodded. "We'll investigate thoroughly. If you remember anything else, call me any time." I returned to sit beside Luke. The room was bright white, oppressively quiet. I gently brushed his hair back and whispered, "If that box was meant for me, then you protected me this time." The sound of heels clicking quickly across the hospital tile echoed as I poured a cup of warm water for Luke. I turned, and my heart seized when I saw Martha and Amanda enter the hallway, both pale, eyes wide with panic, like they had just heard something from the police. "Where's my son? Luke?" Martha nearly shouted at the nurse at the reception desk. Her voice shook, but something about it felt forced. I set the cup down and stepped forward. "He's in recovery. The doctors say his system still needs time to flush the toxins." Martha looked at me with tear-gilded eyes. "How could this happen? He's only 32, healthy." Amanda stood beside her, clutching her purse strap in silence. Oddly, when our eyes met, she looked away. I tried to stay calm. "He ate the entire box of chocolate you gave him last night. After that, it happened." That sentence made Martha's face freeze for a split second, then shift to one of dramatic anguish. She clutched her chest as if collapsing. "Oh, God, no. I just wanted to celebrate your birthday." Amanda quickly supported her. "Mom, calm down. It's going to be okay." I crossed my arms. "The police are investigating. They've already sent the chocolates for testing." Martha raised her head, her eyes flashing for a brief second before going blank again. "Do they still have the box?" "The police took it, but there were a few foil wrappers left. They collected those too." Amanda suddenly chimed in. "If it helps, I can stop by your place and check if anything's left in the trash, maybe packaging or the box lid." I eyed her with suspicion, but then I nodded. "If you want. You already know the address." Amanda gave a faint smile, one that sent chills down my spine. She turned and left quickly, like she'd been waiting for me to say that all along. I sat in the waiting area with Martha. She kept murmuring fragmented sentences, none of which explained why that box of chocolate had been so dangerous. An hour later, Amanda returned empty-handed. "Nothing," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Maybe you cleaned up. I checked both the trash and the kitchen." I frowned. "The box was still on the table when Luke collapsed. Are you sure you checked everything?" Amanda nodded quickly. "Definitely. I knew what to look for." I was about to question her further when the nurse signaled to me. "Miss Sophie, the doctor would like a word." I stood and walked past them. As I rounded the hallway corner, I stopped cold. From the slightly ajar staff lounge door, I heard Amanda's voice. "He was supposed to eat them one at a time, not the whole box. Mom, if they detect that compound—" "Quiet!" Martha's voice was sharp. "Who told you to let him eat the whole thing? It just needed to make him weak, make Sophie uneasy enough to leave him. Now he's in the hospital. Everything's a mess." I covered my mouth, stepping back. Something inside me cracked wide open. I knew they didn't like me, but to hurt their own son just to push me away? I already got rid of the box, Amanda said quietly. No evidence. They can't prove anything. Silence. A terrifying pause. I didn't wait another second. My heart pounded as I turned and stumbled back to Luke's room like a shadow, steps shaky. The police needed to know, now. I pulled out my phone and dialed Lieutenant Dawson. He answered right away. I'm en route to the hospital. Lab results confirm something serious. Is there anything else you need to share? I took a deep breath. I just overheard a conversation you need to hear, very clearly. Stay where you are. I'm on my way. I hung up, glancing back toward the staff lounge, just one thin wall away from two women I once called family. Not even 30 minutes after the call, Lieutenant Dawson arrived at the hospital corridor. He looked calm as usual, but this time, there was tension behind his eyes. I led him to a quiet hallway away from Martha and Amanda. I just heard them talking in the staff lounge, I whispered. It was clear. They're panicking because Luke ate the whole box. They didn't mean for it to go this far, but they planned it. Dawson nodded, his eyes narrowing. We just received the lab report from the city facility. The chocolate contained an extremely rare synthetic compound. It directly impacts the nervous system and digestive tract if consumed consistently. It doesn't react immediately, it builds up. My scalp tingled. So, if Luke had eaten only a few pieces, nothing would have shown up? Exactly. But because he ate nearly the whole box, the reaction was severe. I clenched my fists. And they're hiding another box. Dawson looked at me, a trace of acknowledgement in his eyes. We searched Amanda Bennett's vehicle under an emergency warrant. In the trunk, we found another box of chocolates, unopened. Same brand, same wrapping, even had a card that said, "Happy birthday, Sophie." I froze. They prepared 2 boxes? Very likely. One to give, one as backup in case something went wrong, or perhaps to target someone else if the plan didn't play out. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. This betrayal wasn't just a cut. It was a clean, cold slice through the last bit of trust I had in that family. When we tested the unopened box, the toxin levels were even higher. It appears they intended to increase the dosage if the first attempt didn't work. I leaned back against the wall, knees weak. What will you do next? We've just issued temporary detainment orders for Patricia Bennett and Amanda Bennett. I recommend you stay here at the hospital with your husband. Let us handle the rest. Just then, a plainclothes officer quietly approached Martha and Amanda, who were still seated in the waiting area. I watched as if it were a slow-mashing film. Martha blinked rapidly, while Amanda jumped to her feet. What's going on? Martha asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Mrs. Patricia Bennett and Miss Amanda Bennett, you need to come with us. You are connected to a serious poisoning case and are required to cooperate in the investigation. What? Amanda shouted. No, you have no proof. We have substantial evidence. Please cooperate. From a distance, I watched the 2 women being escorted away. Martha glanced back at me. Her eyes no longer held that icy pride. Only emptiness, maybe even desperation. But I didn't feel sorry for her, not anymore. That night, I sat beside Luke's hospital bed, still holding his hand. The IV monitor beeped steadily, casting a pale light over his peaceful but pale face. Near midnight, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then picked up. Ms. Sophie? A fast-talking man's voice said. I'm a reporter with WGN Chicago. We've received word of a serious poisoning incident involving the Bennett family. Are you willing to give a statement? I stayed silent for a few seconds, then hung up. No response. This wasn't just a failed attempt to hurt me. It was the final collapse of every illusion I ever had about my in-laws being not that bad. Everything, the separate meals, the sidelong glances, the whispers, had been warnings I ignored. The next morning, police officially announced that both Martha and Amanda would be held for further investigation on charges of intentional poisoning conspiracy. I was asked to come to the station to give a detailed statement. Before leaving the hospital, I leaned down and kissed Luke's forehead. He still hadn't woken up. I'll be back soon, and when you open your eyes, I want it all to be over. No more secrets, no one else will hurt us again. The interrogation room at the Chicago Police Department was cold and lit with harsh fluorescent lights. I sat across from Lieutenant Dawson holding a folder he had just given me, filled with information I never imagined would be tied to my name. We reviewed all life insurance policies filed over the past 3 years involving you and your husband, Dawson began, speaking slowly. And what we found may shock you. I nodded, drawing a deep breath. I'm ready. 3 weeks before Luke was hospitalized, he signed a new policy with Horizon Prime Insurance. It was an expanded plan, with double benefits in the event of an accidental death. He paused, watching my face. The listed beneficiaries were you and his mother. I frowned. He did mention switching policies, but why would his mother be listed? That's what we asked. Our initial investigation revealed that this plan was recommended by someone in the industry, an old acquaintance of Mrs. Martha. That person admitted she asked them to present the plan to Luke, saying she wanted to ensure family safety. I swallowed hard. That's not all, is it? Dawson opened another file. We found a second policy. This one was in your name. I stiffened. I never signed up for a personal life insurance policy outside of my company. Exactly, he nodded. This one was processed through an agent in Evanston, and the person who signed it using a forged power of attorney was Martha Bennett. She used an old version of your signature copied from banking documents filed around the time of your first year of marriage. The beneficiaries listed are Patricia Bennett and Amanda Bennett. I couldn't believe my ears. They forged my signature, took out a policy on me without my knowledge. According to the date of registration, that was during a time when you suffered a prolonged stomach issue and had to take nearly a week off work. Do you remember that? A vague image came back. That evening at Martha's house when she made chicken soup just for me because I looked tired, I had thanked her, even felt touched. The next morning I was vomiting non-stop and had to go to the hospital. Diagnosis? Digestive upset from something I ate. I never questioned it. And last Christmas, I added, voice trembling, I broke out in hives after eating cookies she baked. Luke said I must have developed an almond allergy, but I'd never had one before. Dawson scribbled notes. Everything fits. Did you ever wonder why only you got sick, not Luke? I held my head. I thought, it was just my body reacting badly. No, Sophie. He looked directly at me. They tried multiple times, but either the dosage wasn't strong enough or your body reacted slower. The chocolate, that was likely meant for you, but Luke ate it all, so the plan backfired. It felt like the floor beneath me was giving way. I had lived in that house with those people for 3 years. I truly believed that if I tried hard enough, things would be okay. I never imagined I'd sit here, listening to the police recount every close call. All plotted by the people I once called family. There's one more thing, Dawson said, sliding a photo toward me. This is a security image, showing Amanda carrying the second chocolate box out of Lyndon and Belle, the one we found in her car. She claims her mother asked her to pick it up, but the store staff confirmed. It was Martha who placed the order herself, with the note, delivered directly to Sophie, must ensure she receives it. I let out a bitter laugh as tears streamed down. Must ensure she receives it. So I could unknowingly end my own life? Without knowing who was behind it? Dawson didn't respond, he simply closed the folder. We're expanding the investigation into identity fraud, attempted poisoning, and insurance fraud. If these charges are confirmed, both will face very serious consequences. I left the interrogation room with heavy steps. Outside, rain was falling hard, cold drops pounding on the car roofs parked along the curb. I looked up and closed my eyes. They didn't just want me gone. They had built an entire script, a motive, and an exit strategy, all waiting for one final outcome. And if Luke hadn't eaten the entire box of chocolates that day, I might have been the one lying in the ICU right now. 2 days later, when Luke had fully regained consciousness, I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. We sat together in the quiet hospital room. I held his hand and told him everything. The chocolates, the conversation I overheard, the police discovery of a life insurance policy he didn't remember signing, and another one under my name created with forged documents. Luke was silent for a long time. I had never seen him like that. Not angry, not panicked. Just a hollow look in his eyes. As if every ounce of trust had fallen off a cliff. I can't believe it, he finally whispered. My mom and Amanda. I only nodded. I can't ignore it anymore. They've been planning this for a long time, and I need your help with something. What is it? He asked, and for the first time there was no protection for his mother in his voice, only raw fear. We need to go to your mother's house before she tries to erase everything. That afternoon, after confirming Martha was tied up meeting with her attorney and Amanda was still in custody, Luke and I drove to the suburban house in the north side of the city. Luke used an old spare key he kept from before we got married. As the door opened, the familiar scent of lavender air spray hit me, a scent I'd never liked. The house looked perfectly neat as if nothing had happened, but I knew what we needed wasn't in the living room or kitchen. It was in Martha's bedroom. We hurried upstairs. In the bedroom, everything was arranged too precisely, almost staged. Luke opened the nightstand drawer while I went to the vanity, where a small safe sat tucked beneath. Do you know the code? Her birthday, Luke said. He entered the numbers. Click. The safe unlocked. Inside was a thick stack of papers. I carefully pulled them out and froze when I saw a copy of a life insurance policy in my name. Correct social security number, correct details, but the signature wasn't mine. This is it, I whispered. The original. Luke kept digging and pulled out a file labeled confidential. Inside was a detailed list of chemical compounds used in natural flavoring, with notes on dosages and their effects on the human body. My hands trembled. They researched all this? At the bottom was a thick envelope. I opened it and nearly dropped it. Inside were photographs of me in the kitchen, me leaving my office, me at the bus stop. Each photo had a timestamp, some dated nearly 2 years ago. One made my breath catch. It was of me asleep in bed, hair a mess, face pale, with something pinned to it, a sewing pin, stabbed through the edge of the photo, right in the center of my forehead. Luke stepped over, saw the photo, and took a step back. Oh my God! I turned to say something, but the bedroom door suddenly burst open. Amanda stood there, her eyes blazed. What are you doing in my house? Luke froze. Your house? Amanda, this is Mom's, and Mom's being investigated for poisoning me. And you brought her here to ransack everything? Amanda shouted, storming forward as if to snatch the files from my hands. I stepped back, holding tight. Don't touch me. Everything in here is going straight to the police. There's no proof, she screamed, though her voice had started to shake. Luke turned to her, his voice low. Amanda, why? Why would you and Mom do this? Amanda was quiet for a few seconds. Then she laughed, dry and bitter. Because everything changed when you married her. Mom lost control of the finances. I was pushed out of the family investment plans, and Sophie just walked in and got half the estate. You think this was just about love? I stared at her. So you decided to poison your own brother? Amanda clenched her fists. We only wanted to scare you, but you were stupid enough to eat the whole box. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Amanda froze. You tricked me? I just needed a reason to send your words to the police, I said, voice steady, holding the phone up. Luke looked at his sister one last time and said quietly, Get out. And don't ever come back. Amanda stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the walls. The trial ended on a bleak autumn morning. The Chicago sky was as gray as my heart. Over 3 weeks of court hearings, every layer of truth was peeled back. Forged insurance documents, surveillance photos of me, and the chocolate box containing toxins. The evidence came down like the final hammer on the rotting foundation of everything I once believed. When Patricia Bennett stood in the witness box, she no longer carried the air of pride and power I remembered. The dark gray suit couldn't hide her sunken eyes and sleepless expression. Her lawyer entered a plea. The defendant admits to conspiring to profit from the life insurance policies of her son and daughter-in-law by secretly introducing toxins into food, the judge read, his voice icy. This act was deliberate, premeditated, and carried serious potential consequences. I squeezed Luke's hand. He looked straight at his mother. The woman who once rocked him to sleep, took him to his first piano lesson, now the one who nearly ended his life. or mine. For money. The sentence, 5 years in prison, no parole. No one in the courtroom cried, not even Patricia. She stood still, lips pressed together, eyes cast down to avoid her son's gaze. Amanda's case went a little differently. Throughout the trial she remained silent, no protests, no denial. During one testimony, when asked why she joined the plan, Amanda choked up. My mother manipulated me all my life. She made me believe that as long as Sophie existed in this family, I'd never have anything. I was afraid of being left behind, afraid I'd never be anyone. Her words sank into the room like a heavy stone. In the end, due to her cooperation and the fact that she didn't directly cause harm, Amanda was sentenced to 3 years of probation under special conditions and a restraining order from contacting my family. As she exited the courtroom, she looked back at me, as if to say something, but only lowered her head. I didn't nod. I didn't smile. I turned away. That afternoon, Luke and I returned to our apartment. Neither of us spoke the entire ride. When we got home, he let out a long sigh, then suddenly pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry. For everything that happened. For not seeing it sooner. For letting you face it alone. I leaned into him, silent for a while before saying, "It's not your fault, they're your family. I tried to believe if I was kind enough things would get better. But some people will never accept your existence. I can't change them." Luke looked at me, and for the first time, his eyes weren't torn between two loyalties. They were clear. The eyes of a man who finally knew what was right and what was wrong. "They're not my family anymore," he said softly. "We are, and from now on I'll protect you. With everything I have." We decided to leave the city. Chicago held too many heavy memories. Luke resigned from his job at the financial firm and accepted a position with a small company in Vermont. A peaceful, green place where we could start over without ghosts from the past. Before we left, I received a letter in the mailbox. No return address, just the name Amanda at the bottom. In it she wrote, "I don't expect forgiveness. But I hope that one day, you'll understand how deeply I was controlled. I was once a child who needed love too. But my mother taught me only one rule. If you want to survive, eliminate what stands in your way. You survived. And I hope you live happily." I folded the letter and placed it in a wooden box where I kept things I couldn't forget. Not out of regret, but to remind myself. There was a time I had to walk the line between forgiveness and survival. A month later, in our new home on a Vermont hillside, while arranging books on the shelf, I heard Luke call from the kitchen. "Sophie, are you free for a sec?" I walked in. He handed me a pregnancy test. 2 clear pink lines. "We're going to have a baby," he said, voice trembling. I laughed through tears, hugging him tightly. Norfield, Connecticut welcomed us with a crisp, quiet morning breeze and the scent of pine drifting through the open windows. Our small white house sat at the end of a maple-lined road. Simple, but enough for us to begin a life we could finally control. It took us nearly 2 weeks to settle in, repaint, and pick out each item for our new home. No more sirens, no more looming skyscrapers. Only birdsong each morning and soft sunlight filtering through the living room curtains. Luke started his new job at a local accounting office. The slower pace changed him. No more exhaustion, no more tight deadlines. Just a calm, steady man, ready to care for the family he almost lost. As for me, once the house was in order, I reopened my web design studio from a small office next to our bedroom. Even far from the city, I stayed connected with former clients online, and even received new referrals from them. Strangely, the farther I got from the chaos, the more creative I became. I redesigned a logo for an old bookstore, updated a website for a local preschool, and began receiving thank you notes from people I'd never met but who trusted me. A quiet warmth the city never gave me. That evening, after I finished plating roasted chicken with honey-glazed vegetables, Luke walked into the kitchen still wearing his favorite checkered shirt. He placed his hand gently on my belly, smiling with a hint of mischief. "Is tonight a special occasion?" he asked, pouring 2 glasses of apple cider. I handed him a small, cream-colored envelope with a faint gold trim. He opened it, eyes landing on the message inside the card. "We're having a baby in June." He froze, then looked up at me, eyes wide. "Really? Did you check?" I nodded, eyes misty. This morning. I was going to wait until the weekend, but I couldn't. He pulled me into a tight embrace, whispering in my ear, I thought I'd lost everything, but now, you and the baby are all I need. We sat together late into the night talking about where the crib would go, what names we liked for a girl, for a boy. There was something in the air that evening, a weightlessness, as if life had finally chosen to forgive us. A week later, I received an email from Amanda. No subject line, just a short message. I know you don't want to hear anything from me, but I genuinely hope you find happiness. I'm also trying to rebuild from the wreckage our mother left behind. If one day you allow it, I'd like to apologize, not with words, but through actions. I didn't reply. I wasn't sure if I could forgive her, and I wasn't going to force myself to try, but I knew my silence wasn't anger anymore. It was a clear boundary between what I was willing to carry forward and what I'd leave behind. One Sunday morning while I was making tea, Luke walked in with a small box. He placed it on the table and smiled. I had it made, nothing fancy, just a reminder. I opened the box. Inside was a silver necklace with a red maple leaf pendant, the symbol of the small town that had given us shelter after the storm. Engraved on the back was a delicate inscription. Still standing, still loving, still us. I held the pendant, eyes shimmering. I never thought I could call a place home. Until now. Luke took my hand, his gaze soft but steady. Because this time, you don't have to earn love. You just get to be yourself. A breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of fresh grass and boiling tea. I knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but I wasn't afraid anymore. One early spring afternoon, as I was folding blankets in the bedroom, Luke came in with a familiar smile, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. He sat beside me, placed the mugs on the nightstand, then suddenly blurted out like something had just struck him. You know, if I hadn't eaten that whole box of chocolates, things might have turned out very differently. I looked up at him. I still think about that every day. Sometimes, what seems like a random accident becomes the key that unlocks truths we never expected. That chocolate box, disguised as a gift of love from a mother-in-law, was the first clue in a dark game they had planned all along. And if Luke hadn't eaten it all, if I hadn't noticed the shake in Martha's voice on the phone, if Amanda hadn't offered to look for the chocolates, only to return empty-handed, I might never have known. There are nights I lie quietly in our dark room, hand resting on my growing belly, and wonder, if he had just left one piece, would I have been the one in the emergency room? That single coincidence changed everything. Martha and Amanda might have thought they'd win with control and manipulation, that fake sweetness could hide greed, but they forgot one thing. What's real always finds a way to survive. And real love doesn't need approval, only protection. Luke isn't perfect. He once blindly idolized the woman who raised him. But when faced with truth and deception, he chose right. He didn't choose me out of obligation. He chose me because for the first time, he understood. Family isn't where you come from. It's where you're never made to feel like you don't belong. From brokenness, we rebuilt a life. From doubt, we rebuilt trust. From a near-death experience, I realized what mattered most were the smallest things. A peaceful morning, a meal without fear, a hug that meant safety. Now, whenever I pass the mailbox outside, I remember the gifts I used to get from my in-laws. Boxes of pastries filled with pretenses, cards with hollow wishes. But now, in that same mailbox are invitations from neighbors, congratulations from new friends, and sometimes a wildflower bouquet left by someone who thought, you might like this. Life isn't magical because it's free of hardship. It's magical because we learn we're strong enough to face it. I used to think family was something you had to endure, a place where you bent yourself to be accepted. But now I know, family is where you're allowed to be yourself without punishment. It's where mistakes are forgiven, tears are wiped away, and a simple twist of fate, like someone eating a box of chocolates, can end up saving your life. Luke squeezed my hand, gently kissed my forehead. Sophie? Thank you for not letting go. I leaned into his shoulder, whispering, and thank you for eating the chocolate. We both laughed, our soft laughter filling the room as the sunset bathed everything in golden light. Somewhere out there, maybe someone still doubts that justice is real. But I know. Nothing stays hidden forever, and nothing can block the light of truth. Sometimes, it's the smallest things. A box of candy, a stomachache, a fleeting glance, that can change a life forever. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted to live. A simple, kind, full life with the one who chose to stay with me to the very end. Life always hides the unexpected, and sometimes something as ordinary as finishing a box of chocolates can uncover a plan far more sinister. Sophie's story reminds us that not every family is safe, and misplaced trust can become a blade. But through courage and unwavering love, Sophie overcame it all and began a peaceful, honest new chapter. Truth may be hidden, but it always finds its way through. What do you think about Sophie's actions and Luke's choice? Would you have the strength to face the truth the way they did? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and resilience.